the man of many jobs, Pete Medhurst. But today we're talking about one of his favorite jobs, which is play-by-play for Navy Athletics, and we're going to preview the Army-Navy game that's on Saturday up at Mikey Stadium at West Point. Pete, it's been a struggle for Navy on offense this year. They've gone through 4 quarterbacks starting. Army's somehow gone through 6, I found out today, which is crazy. But what do you think? It's as simple as saying they're not getting production from the quarterback, or do you think it's a bigger problem that is causing the offense to struggle so much?
Well, I mean, I think Joe and I have done a great job detailing through the games this year that clearly, when you have someone of an NFL caliber, as it's turned out with Malcolm Perry operating at that position, he sets the bar incredibly high. And for whatever reason this year, and let's face it, for this offense, all the repetitions that you get in the spring and the instruction time, the hands-on instruction time that Ivan Jasper and that offensive staff can have with these players is critical. And all that lost time, the fact that it wasn't a typical training camp as it normally is, it's all lost instructional time. And, unfortunately, that's the most important position in this offense and in any offense, quite frankly, at any level of football. You don't have to be, Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, but you can't be bad either. And you can't turn the football over either. So for the offense to get where it needs to go, all that lost instructional time, considering no one had any real experience at all, created the perfect storm, I think, for this offense. And I mean, let's face it, we didn't play for the month of November. We played it on Halloween, then we didn't play for 3 weeks. And you've got an interrupted preparation time there, especially over those first couple of weeks because there were COVID issues on our campus that led to that. So, it's just, to me, pandemic 2020 football has created the perfect storm here at the Naval Academy. I mean, we have won 3 games. We probably should have won the Memphis game. Quite frankly, our defense played out of their mind. Couldn't have played a better game. And the defense kept us in this week's game with Tulsa, who's going to the league championship game. So my inclination is this staff will eventually figure it out. It probably will be in time for 2021, but they'll come up with something because I think the defense is going to keep them in this game this week. This has all the makings of a 6 field goal special between the two sides, a 9-6, 12-9, 14-9 type football game coming up because I just think both defenses are that good coming up this week.
It's you were talking about the spring. This coming spring is going to be interesting because the starting quarterback on Sundays or Saturday is going to be Xavier Arline, and he's supposed to play lacrosse this spring. So it's going to be interesting to see, A, how spring practice looks as far as COVID, B, what kind of lacrosse season we get, and if he's going to be allowed to spend any time with the football team or if he's constantly going to be in lacrosse practice and games all spring.
Yeah, I mean, for the kid, it's a great issue to have. I mean, Xavier is a very talented young man. All you have to do is go back and look at his film up on Long Island, and you can see his exploits in both sports. So that will be a bridge that I know they'll cross when they get to it. Selfishly for the kid, you hope he's allowed to play both. Craig Candido did a long time ago in this offense, played baseball and played football. But with all of the time that Xavier needs, if they do have any portion of spring practice, maybe it would help him if it's a little later in the spring, especially if lacrosse starts reasonably on time. Maybe he has a chance to cross over and do both. But that's a decision that Kenny and Ivan and Xavier will have to make, depending on where they see him, obviously, fitting in the football footprint in 2021.
Do you think he's going to play on the lacrosse team, assuming there's a normal season?
I mean, I think, look, that's above my pay grade. I think he'll want to. I think they will want to have him out there on the lacrosse field. And again, very rarely do you have the multi-sport athlete at this level where you play such a high profile role potentially for both teams. And again, that's a discussion that Kenny, Ivan, and Xavier have to have. I think based on the way he plays this week and what they think his role will be in 2021 going forward will have a lot to do, with how much opportunity he gets in lacrosse. And then let's face it, if he's out on the lacrosse field, he's got to go out and earn that too. I mean, you don't just get given a shot because you've got terrific high school film or terrific summertime lacrosse film, as most of these players go out and play on the club circuit now. And a lot of times it's better than their high school circuit. But again, it's a great problem to have for the athlete. Let's hope he's good enough for both that they actually have to have that conversation, because then that means both football and or lacrosse could be potentially getting a very good player.
Okay, on the defensive side, I think you and Joe have said on the broadcast, one starter has played every game, started every game on the defense.
Yep, Jackson Perkins.
Diego Fagot just made that play where he realized that the quarterback from Tulsa was scrambling to the opposite side of the field and just took off. And he tried to do it again on another play, and the guy either got rid of, I can't remember if he got rid of it before he got there or if he just avoided him or what, but Fagot's playing out of his mind. But what do you think about the defense overall going into Army?
Well, I think the good thing is the continuity factor is this group as a unit has now played together for a couple of weeks. That's a start. And Brian Newberry said going into the Memphis game that he thought the defense had its best football still ahead of him. And he's proven to be right. When you hold Memphis to 10, Tulsa to 19, you should have a chance to win both of those games. But it's because they've had the same group of guys playing together, more experience on the corners. McMorris was back this week. So when you're out there with McMorris, Jamal Glenn has gotten snaps, Caleb Clear has gotten snaps. So when you put them out there with the experience of Kinley and McMorris, you've got a much deeper position at corner. The safeties have played more. Mitchell West has adapted more to his role now because, when you lose a guy like Evan Fachman, you're losing just a tremendous football player, does so much for the defense. And now Mitchell has had to play a lot more. And each week as he plays, he's going to get better just from having the reps. So I think the continuity of having all the same players, I think Donald Berniard Jr. has done a good job of, solidifying the nose guard spot, fourth different starter at that position this year. So I think, again, having continuity has helped. They'll have all those guys going into Army. And look, let's face it, there aren't many games where Diego Fagot can play the traditional middle linebacker position. Army's not spreading this out 5 wide and chucking it all over the place. 54 is going to be in on a lot of plays. And again, as I've said all along, I think Diego Fagot has potential NFL ability at the linebacker position. Question will be ultimately, for scouts, I'm sure, how fast he runs in a straight line. Otherwise, he has all the intangibles to play the position. He'll knock your head off. He's got great instincts to play middle linebacker. And we've seen him also be a very capable blitzer, not only against the run, but against the pass as well, and get to the quarterback.
And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Nelson Smith's season. Up until the two guys for Tulsa basically said, you will not run through here. On Saturday, he's been playing really well. And it's interesting because he, as the B-back, that dive is used to set up the pitch game and the quarterback game, which has not been there. So I'm frankly surprised more defenses before Tulsa weren't keying on the dive and forcing Navy to try to go work the outside game because they saw on film that they were struggling. But I don't know whether it's why that is, but he has had a really good year before that, up to that game.
Well, not many people have a 351-pound nose tackle in Stevenson and a 300-pounder that moves like Jackson Player. Player was ridiculous the other day. His movement laterally to pursue plays, to eschew blockers, and he had 12 tackles from a defensive lineman position, and 10 of them were solo. That's almost unheard of. 4.5 tackles for a loss. That's as well as any defensive lineman individually has ever played against us the entire triple option era. And remember, we've played against Ed Oliver and Aaron Donald, players like that. Tanzel Smart from Tulane was as good as anybody I'd seen play against us on the defensive line. So you're putting Jackson Player up in some pretty heady company with the way he played against us this week. And sometimes you just have to tip your cap to the other team because that guy individually was a game wrecker. And it just goes to show you how well – the reason why you haven't noticed all the other teams and the way Nelson had run the ball so effectively is Pierce Banbury and those guys on the offensive line right there in the middle had played so well against a lot of those teams to be able to allow that play to gain so many yards. But unfortunately, Jackson Player just played out of his mind this past week. Really had an amazing game for Tulsa. And, they're going to be an interesting foe for Cincinnati coming up. I don't know if Tulsa can score with Cincinnati. Then again, I don't know how much Cincinnati's going to score against that Tulsa defense. Collins is a pro at linebacker. Player and Stevenson, I think, are pros up front. So that's going to make for a very interesting American championship game. So happy for Coach Montgomery. If it can't be us, glad it's him and Tulsa that's going to the championship game.
Player also seemed to have figured out the snap count based on what Joe said in the – I don't know if
look, he if you go back and watch the film, and I think that's where not having an experienced quarterback at that point, you've got to change the snap count up on that guy. They probably could have gotten him to jump off sides 4 or 5 times if they'd have just varied the snap count at all, because he was getting off the ball so quick. And you're right. There were a couple times where he just flat out guessed right and beat the ball. I mean, the ball wasn't even back there, and he was already in the backfield. But again, that's where having an experienced signal caller maybe changes up the snap a little bit and, and gets the guy to jump offside in those situations.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was wondering if they were changing up the count or not during the game, or if it was the same, going on the same thing each time. What is your favorite, if you had to pick one memory of either your sideline duties or any of the things you've done for Army Navy, what's your favorite story or memory from the game?
Wow. I think it goes back to family for me. My cousin Matt kicked for Army during President Bush's administration, the second President Bush. And President Bush was walking around the field, came out on the field. Matt had the ball teed up practicing kickoffs before the game. And President Bush walked right by and said, "Hey, do you mind if I kick it?" And President Bush went ahead and kicked the ball off his tee. When I talked to Matt after that, Matt was like, hey, he goes, I said, what did you say when he asked you that? He goes, well, who am I to tell the president of the United States, no, you can't kick the ball off of my tee? Handshakes as they walked by with President Bush and President Obama, certainly are, memorable. Anytime you're in that presence, the president of the United States is a pretty important person. You'd have loved to have been able to have a short conversation, hey, how are you? But just the fact that they reach their hand out and you can shake their hand in passing, just extraordinary moments. I think from a playing standpoint, Keenan doing what he did, setting the all-time rushing touchdown record against Army, having Wyatt Middleton steal the ball down on the goal line and return it for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Malcolm's game last year, it's one for the ages, and CBS is very kind to sometimes play a play from the game with your cut. A couple of years ago, Noah Copeland runs for a touchdown and Vern Lundquist introduces me and everybody's on Twitter going, Pete, Vern Lundquist just introduced you and said your name, and they play to play and stuff like that. Yeah, Rich DeMarco and I have been doing national interviews this week for the game. And, I think, and Rich and I both said, just the fact that we are two of the guys, along with Westwood One and radio and CBS and television, to be there and broadcast that game. I've broadcasted, my kids playing games in high school and college. And obviously I've been broadcasting stuff at Navy for a long time, but the Army-Navy game is one of a kind. It's truly one of the extraordinary standalone events in our country from a broadcasting and game standpoint. And to be part of it in such a predominant way is humbling And it's an incredible honor that I don't take lightly. I know Joe doesn't, Keith doesn't, Scott Wyckoff doesn't, and I know Rich and his colleagues in Army don't either, because there are a lot of people that could have our positions, and we're very fortunate to have them, and we hope we do the game justice each and every year.
Yeah, I've heard Bob Sosi interviewed, and he's done Super Bowls with the Patriots, and he puts Army Navy right up there with calling those games. So it's a big deal to call those games for an announcer. One last, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, look, you're absolutely right. I mean, Bob has done amazing things in our profession, man. You talk about a guy that, I mean, Army Navy, four Super Bowls, five Super Bowls, 4 Super Bowls now, I think, with New England. So
I think it's 4.
Yeah, I mean, working with my guy Zoe, who I used to work with on CBS College Sports doing the Navy games. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find 2 guys that have more fun broadcasting a game than those 2 do on the New England Patriots radio network.
Zoe could have fun reading the dictionary.
No doubt.
Last one to get you out of here. Navy basketball started with, what was it, 5 games in 7 days, something like that? 8 days?
Yeah, 4, yeah.
They got a big win over Georgetown before they had to pause due to COVID protocols. But just talk about their starts of the season and what a special player Cam Davis has turned into for them.
No doubt, the captain of the captains. And when you talk about a guy that achieves that level, going to MIT for post-grad work, so he's a ridiculous student athlete, takes care of his work in the classroom, so he doesn't have any issues on the basketball court. That's if you're a coach at Navy, those are the kind of kids you love to coach, because you never have to worry about anybody chasing you for, hey, his class work is, it's borderline. We really need him to do a lot more work. And he's just a tremendous, tremendous young man. I know Chris and Adrian, his mom and dad, got to be super proud of him with what he's achieved. But more importantly, he is never afraid of the moment, Brian. And that's what, when you saw him against George Washington in the Veterans Classic in the opener, Mids led by double digits twice in the game. And GW made a serious run in the second half. They got a point guard out of Mount St. Joe that's a transfer from LSU. So, I mean, they had some legitimate people. They cut it to 4 points, and then Cam said, wait a minute, I'm going to stop this right here. He scored 6 of the next 8 for Navy, and that's a player that's never wowed by the moment. So you have to have a guy like that on your team if you're going to win at a legitimate level. The other night, Georgetown had a lead. They get back in the game, and Cam and John Carter just took over. They were assassins late in the ball game, and all of a sudden it went from like an 8-point Georgetown lead to a 9-point Navy lead, and game was over. And, like a minute to go, you're like, man, Navy's going to win this game. And very rare is it when the Patriot League plays the Big East, and the Patriot League may have had not only the best player, but they probably had the best 2 players on the floor that night, because Cam Davis and John Carter Jr. were the 2 best players on the floor. And those are the kind of nights you have to have if you're going to beat teams in the Power 5 or Power 6 in basketball. Georgetown and the Big East would certainly be one of the power brokers. I mean, with Villanova, Marquette got a great win this week as well. So to beat a Big East team, question's going to be now, after this layoff, it's going to be like starting over when they play Bucknell in the league season with a really wacky schedule, playing Saturday and Sunday. And I think Navy's going to be in great shape because Coach DeCellis and the staff have developed a deep bench. It's a deep club, and they're going to need that come Patriot League time, playing on Saturdays and Sundays. And, I mean, think about this. We're talking about Army Navy coming up in football this week. I think Army Navy in basketball is going to be loaded. You're going to have 4 games between those teams, and both teams have played great here in November and December. So I think we're headed for some great games on the basketball court between these 2 teams as well. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot for joining me, Pete. You can listen to Pete call Army Navy with Joe Miller and Keith Mills on the Navy Radio Network. Locally, that's either WNAV 1430, Federal News Radio 1500 in DC, and WBAL 1090 in Baltimore. And also, if you need to stream it, it's on WBAL.com. And the television broadcast will be on CBS. Thanks, Pete.
You got it, Bryan. Thanks for having me.